The use of AI within the entertainment industry has become a hot button issue within the last year or so as we've seen the rise of AI technology and just what its capabilities are. Obviously, it's not to the point right now where it can actually just replicate a movie just by prompts, but if you actually just give it some time, it probably will eventually get to that point. And there's a lot of people speaking out against this sort of thing, while there's also some other people actually speaking in favor of it. One of the people who are speaking out against it is Robert Downey Jr. within a recent interview where he says he doesn't like the idea of it being used to replicate his likeness. This article from Variety right here is talking about it. Robert Downey Jr. refuses to let Hollywood create his AI digital replica. I intend to sue all future executives who recreate my likeness. That's what he said about this. Robert Downey Jr. appeared on a recent episode of the On with Kara Swisher podcast and sent a stern warning to Hollywood in the age of AI. I intend to sue all future executives who sign off on the creation of a Downey digital replica. And given the context of what he was talking about here, I don't think he's necessarily referring to AI specifically, but just CGI replications of his likeness in general, because I have a hard time believing that he'd be okay if people would just use a CGI recreation of him as opposed to using it through the AI generation. And I think a lot of this just has to do with the fact that that's kind of like the new term that people are coming to use in relation to a lot of this media, where people will say like, oh, well, that's just AI. It's like, well, is it AI or is it someone who actually just generated it digitally? Because there's a difference right there, because AI is basically made through prompts and it creates something versus a CGI recreation. Someone actually had to put some work into it. You'll hear this a lot in relation to photos where people will be like, that's an AI photo. It's like, well, no, it's not an AI photo. It's just a simple Photoshop. But I get what they're trying to say. I just think people should actually differentiate these two things because they're not necessarily the same. But for the sake of argument, I'll just kind of grant this. It's like, okay, he's not interested in having companies recreate his image digitally without his permission. All right, got that. Let's just move on from there. But this topic was brought up when discussing his experience working at the MCU and whether he's actually concerned or not about them actually using his likeness in future installments. And this is what he had to say about that. To get back to the MCU, I'm not worried about them hijacking my character's soul because there's like 3 or 4 guys and gals who make all the decisions there anyway, and they would never do that to me with or without me, he added. And something interesting to consider when it comes to this is they already have his likeness on their computers. Just think about, I think it was Civil War when they had the de-aged version of him in that. They necessitated actually getting digital scans of his likeness in order to de-age him like they did, not to mention all the other stuff that they did. I mean, you pretty much assume that every actor within the MCU actually has a complete digital version of them on some hard drive over at Marvel Studios. So if they wanted to, they could always break that out. It's just right now a matter of whether they actually have permission from the actor or from their representatives. He's saying he has to have specific permission for them to use that sort of thing, and the executives over there won't try to screw him out of it. Okay, I can actually understand that. Host Kara Swisher, though, asked future executives certainly will, saying that even though he trusts the executives over there now, future ones might not be so kind to him and might be willing to just try to cut corners and use his image if they can. He said, well, you're right. I would like to state that I intend to sue all future executives just on spec. You'll be dead, Swisher noted, basically saying like, well, yeah, way down in the future, there'll be new executives there. They have access to these files. You'll be dead. You can't say no. He says, but my law firm will be very active. So basically he's going to have his estate make sure that they don't do something like that. And that's a possibility. And I can see that being the case, but it's just a matter of whether his estate actually is willing to abide by his wishes, because we've seen time and time again for popular IPs that the estate doesn't necessarily have the best interest of the original creator in mind. Rings of Power is a good example of that, where the Tolkien estate right now grants permission for that because basically Amazon gave them a truckload of money. They don't care about Tolkien's legacy. So they're like, yeah, whatever. We don't care if you're not going by his messaging or if you're not sticking to his themes. We want the money, so you can do whatever you want with our grandfather's IP. And that's pretty much what's going on for the Rings of Power. So I can see down the road if someone wants to create something or someone at Disney wants to do something like that. Robert Downey Jr. has been long dead. They'll be like, yeah, just give us a bunch of money and you can use his likeness however you want. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. And even though he's going to state that I don't want that to actually be the case, that's probably what's going to happen. And while he can probably prevent it to an extent right here and now, once he's dead and gone, there's really nothing he can do about it. So this is pretty much the state of the entertainment industry, especially coincidentally in recent days. We saw this the October 24th when this was published. So just a few days ago, Disney basically said that they're actually trying to work to kind of embrace the use of AI. Disney poised to announce major AI initiative exclusive. This is coming from The Wrap. The Walt Disney Company is poised to announce a major AI initiative that will transform its creative output. Individuals with knowledge told The Wrap on Thursday. The initiative said it involved hundreds of people at the company and will primarily focus on post-production and visual effects. One of the individuals said it would also invoke parks and experiences, but not customer-facing. And this isn't to say that they're going to start using Sora AI in a lot of their future movies. When they say it's not customer facing, I take that to mean that customers aren't going to actually see it. So the audience isn't going to see it. This is just right now, at least, something that'll just be used behind the scenes in order to try to expedite the workflow in certain situations. And to that, I can kind of understand what they're getting at when it comes to these sort of things, because you can actually spend a lot of man hours to do something that not necessarily is a job that you would hire out someone else to do specifically, but just something that takes a lot of time. For instance, in my personal life, I've actually had to use AI for certain situations. Like if I just needed to mock up something really quick, I could spend an hour or so in Photoshop just trying to do something just to kind of recreate like what I envisioned for a scene that I would present to the client. Or I can just go on to something and just generate the image really quick. All it does is just save time and effort, but it's not necessarily taking a job away from anyone else like that. And it's not used for anything that's people are going to see. It's just kind of something that you would present in a meeting or whatever. Just like, hey, this is kind of the vibe I'm going for. It's kind of like a mood board, so to speak, or at least that's how I've used it in the past. Other people may not be like that, where they'll try to use that to almost create something. And I can see in the future, once AI technology improves, maybe people will try to generate entire movies of that. And I think there is going to be a point, if we haven't actually seen that already, where someone's going to try to be like, this is the first movie that's made entirely with AI, with an AI script and AI like visuals and everything like that. And when that happens, I think that's just going to kind of pave the way for more of this kind of stuff. Remember seeing stuff like that in the early 2000s. One movie that really stands out to me is the movie Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow. For people who haven't seen that, that movie was done digitally. It was all on like minimal sets, pretty much all like blue screens. They even recreated Laurence Olivier as the main villain of that, even though he was long dead at that point. And that kind of paved the way for what we've seen right now. We're having completely digital movies or digital sets like that, recreating dead actors. That's just par for the course right now. So I think when it comes to a lot of this AI technology, we're going to see more of that. And there's really just a matter of how you're going to use it. At least that's kind of the mentality Bob Iger has, CEO of Disney, when it comes to this sort of thing. Disney CEO Bob Iger previously said AI is a tool like any other. Walt Disney himself was a big believer in using technology in the early days to tell better stories, and he thought that technology in the hands of greater storytellers was unbelievably powerful. Iger said at the Canva Create Showcase in May. I do think it's important to point out that Bob Iger has a share in Canva, so he has a monetary incentive to try to promote it and to promote this type of technology. But also, I don't believe him when he has like these altruistic motives, like it's just freeing up the artists to do what they need to do sort of thing. It's another tool that they can use. I think ultimately what he wants is to have a world where he can just have someone produce something from a computer with no other human input whatsoever, release it in theaters, and then make money off of it. Because if it was making money for what they're producing with AI, then I think he would definitely do that, because he doesn't necessarily care about the artistic merit. He's a businessman. He just wants to make money for the company. And I can understand that to an extent, but I mean, as someone who actually cares about the art form, that's not necessarily the best way of going about doing things, but still that's what he's going to do. And when he tries to say otherwise, the only reason that I believe they're not doing that right now is just because the technology isn't there. But if it was there, then that's probably what they would be doing. And unfortunately, there's really not a good solution to this sort of thing, because the technology is here and it's here to stay. There's really nothing you can do about it. So I think the only thing we can do now is maybe not necessarily resist it outright, but I think people who actually do have good motives when it comes to producing stuff like this, who want to actually further the art form, I would say maybe not reject it outright, because when you reject something like this outright, then that means and refuse to engage with it, the only people who are going to engage with it are the executives. So I think there needs to be some people within that conversation who are trying to actually make sure that the use of AI isn't necessarily replacing artists or taking away the merits of the art form, but are actually trying to use it to enhance it, or at least that's my personal view about all this. Feel free to disagree with me on this one though, because I'm kind of torn on this. That's just what I think is the best solution, but I'm more than willing to admit that I'm wrong on this type of issue because it is such a new thing. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section. And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.